Hi, everyone. We are going to have a really wonderful discussion today. I'm here again with Nancy Rebecca. We've had several conversations, which I know many of you have really loved because Nancy channels the blue light beings. We've had conversations about how they were activating the pyramids and gave us very specific dates when that was going to be happening, and all of that has unfolded. So Nancy has a very unique take with her communication with the blue light beings. So for those of you who are not familiar with Nancy, just to say she's a retired registered nurse. She's extremely psychic, and indeed, via her website, intuitivemind.org, teaches psychic development and intuition. She's got a super busy YouTube channel now, puts out energy updates all the time. And I know you've got a very large and very loyal following, Nancy. So welcome, because we're going to talk about something very specific today. So welcome.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. These are such exciting times. I've been very much looking forward to talking to you. I've been loving all the people that you are interviewing and keeping your finger on the pulse for all of us. And it's exciting because the ways in which it's coming to the surface that everyone is talking about this great time of change that we're in. And for me, I just want to say, as a retired registered nurse, that was my love, my passion for my entire life was really teaching individuals about the importance of a healthy energy field and what that even looks like. I will say, so I want to make sure that I share that today, that it's starting to come together because I felt like I was just taking a little side tour when it came to the blue beings of light, and the star beings and the galactic, celestial wave of light. Okay, I'll just come back to my nursey thing. And that's not happening. It's such a grand time, but now it's starting to come together. And I haven't said this anywhere else, but I want to don't let me forget that about the human body,
Okay.
what they just recently told me in the last few days. So I'm excited.
Oh.
Okay. So, all right. I'm gonna
So Nancy wrote to me just to set this up because I know we're so excited. We, like sort of horses want to get out of the gate. Nancy wrote to me a couple of weeks ago because she'd received communication from the blue light beings about a very powerful surge in energy. And that's what we're going to be talking about, which is extremely unusual and extremely powerful and positive. Now, Nancy is going to be doing most of the talking over the next hour or so, but I just wanted to set this up. That's really what we're going to be focused on. And it really
Yes,
is exciting for us. So,
it is
Nancy,
very exciting. Yep.
over to you now.
Yeah. So, um, here we are in the year 2025, and we are now in the month of March. And there's this the information that was coming through, it started coming through last year to really pay attention to, especially this first half of 2025, that we will continue up through 2027 to notice shifts. But this specifically is what the focus is to be on. And it really started coming through a lot around quantum physics, quantum light, which I knew nothing about. So they've really assisted me every step of the way to understand this more. And it was interesting. I had somebody write a couple of days ago, I've had several people write, like, where are you getting your information from? And it's like, can you give us reference points? But it's like we don't really have a reference point right now. This is all really some new stuff. And for me to be able to get that information and then find validation in the quantum world is very exciting. So here's the thing. There's a wave of cosmic, I'm calling it a galactic super wave of blue light that is coming from the furthest reaches of the universe, and it's rolling our way. So in the way the blue beings of light are stating, this wave of light is pure, this pure elixir of consciousness. It's just pure consciousness. And it's awakening what they said, one galaxy at a time on its way towards Earth. I mean, it's just beautiful. And what's happening is we're already getting those smaller waves that are coming in, almost just like this just little light movement to the shore. And so we're already getting those to get prepared. But March 29th, a lot of times people want to kind of hang their hat on that date, but it's like the peak moment. It's like, we're starting to build, and then we'll kind of hit that peak infusion of light. And then it'll start to go down, but it will never go back down to the baseline where we are now. So what that means is it's like if you've ever been in the ocean, and the wave come and it raises you up and your feet, lose sight of the sand at the bottom. It's like we're being uplifted and we will not return back to the state where we are now. So whether you are conscious of energy, if this is all brand new to you, if we could just think of it in terms of being uplifted, we're all being uplifted.
And Nancy didn't realize, if I can just interject, that March 29th was a solar eclipse.
No, and I still didn't know that.
And indeed, that solar eclipse is very, very tightly conjunct within a degree of a dwarf planet called Salacia, which is about the shimmering sunlight, moonlight on the sea. It's mermaid
Oh,
energy, but very, very connected to light.
wow.
And so I think we've got so much more to discover about Salacia and how she's linking in with what Nancy is sharing here.
Wow. I've been a huge mermaid fan for so long. And so I've written 3 blogs about it. So people most certainly can go to my website, click on the blog. But the first name was The Cosmic Unveiling. Now, the blue beings of light have been talking about what has been hidden will be revealed. And a lot is being revealed now, but we were given forewarning. Back in 2017 was the first time I heard that. What has been hidden will be revealed, the truth will be illuminated, and justice will be served. So those 3 messages have never changed. But I know right now it just doesn't feel that way. But they did warn us that what has been hidden will be revealed. So some amazing things have been revealed. Some not so pretty, and some pretty incredible things are being revealed as well. And we are going through this revelation, this revealing of cosmic consciousness. And it's always been available to us our whole entire life. But this wave that's coming in is a little bit different. So when I was talking to them in meditation about the 1960s, and that was that revelation of love, and that's where, the Vietnam War was ended, and that, peace and love really was rising to the surface. We went from kind of this constricted state to a more relaxed state. So if everyone kind of wants to review that, it's in some ways very similar, where it's just such an enormous shift. But this one is more about science, a scientific revolution. And I love it when you were talking to Mr. Clements and he was talking about his uh, the quantum field and the science. It's almost like he feels like he's got to throw out a lot of what he learned because there's so much new coming in. And for me as a nurse, I'm extremely excited because that includes medicine. So we're going to see this revolutionary shift in medicine and science and all kinds of high level studies.
And if I can just interject again, Nancy, sorry to interrupt, just add in the astrology. For
Yeah.
the astrologers, you're talking about the 1960s. In the late 1960s, we had a conjunction between Uranus and Pluto. And that was the seed point for what's unfolding now, because then it was hippiedom, it was peace and love, it was anti-war, it was living in communes, communities. And
Yes.
for the first time since the late 60s, Pluto and Uranus are now in a trine, which is extremely beneficial to bring that to blossom. to
Oh,
really
wow. I
bring
just
that
got
to blossom.
goosebumps.
Yeah, and in fact, I think it's the first time. I must check on that, but nevertheless, it's a trine, which is an extremely positive aspect and a lot of beneficial aspects coming in, but it's very much allowing that seed point to blossom.
And so what is, if I can just ask, that sense, that strong sense that I'm having, that this is this first wave, we will have many waves in our lifetime. But this one is like the punch point. It's just so strong. But that scientific piece, I can feel it so strongly.
That's Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto went
Okay.
fully into Aquarius, which is the sign of science, on the 19th of November last year. And that is the first time it has fully been in Aquarius since 1798. And so it's very much about a revolution in science, a revolution in understanding that will bring all kinds of technological revolution in not just science, but medicine and healing and aviation and
Yes.
many disciplines. So, and we're just at the beginning of that because it's going to stay there for 19 years until January 2044. And so we're going to get this blend of science and spirituality, and Saturn in Pisces. Saturn starts to exit Pisces on May 25th, but that is also a signature of the blend of science and spirituality.
Wow. Wow. Well, and the other bit about that for anyone who's out there, any of your listeners listening in that have that sense, well, I don't have a scientific bone in my body. Yeah, you better buckle up because even your own DNA is activating to be able to understand science at a level you were so disinterested in before. It's like there's this hunger that's being activated in humanity to really want that knowledge, hungering for that knowledge. I had someone write yesterday who said, I cannot believe that I cannot get enough articles about quantum physics. I can't even believe that I'm actually understanding what I'm reading. This is what we're talking about. It is that big. And this individual didn't do well in school with mathematics or science, and they cannot believe they're understanding it. And I can really relate to that. And so there is, I wrote this note. This is an unstoppable rise in consciousness.
Wow.
There's not one person in humanity who's going to be able to put the hand up and say, could you just slow down a minute until I get it? And that's the beauty, is we don't have to get it. We're already wired. We're wired for sound. We're wired for this moment. And so we are having our DNA is, what was my note here? Our, our DNA is highly influenced by our environment. So right now, our environment can be pretty stressful. And so our DNA, the stress frequency can activate the DNA to kind of lights off, switch off. And we all know, we want to crawl in bed and put the blankets over our head. So imagine if that was your DNA. It's kind of similar. The stress wants to shut it off. Well, this light coming in is just turn on all the lights in the house. Let's just run around and turn on all the lights. And that's what's happening for us. But in epigenetics, that is where we are impacted by our nature versus nurture, by our environment, by our families when we grew up. But not only that, our ancestral genetics. And so what's happening now, that it isn't just a healing for the individual. This wave is turning on the lights and activating it for our environment, for our ancestors that came before us. There's this enormous healing that's going backwards and going forwards. And with this DNA activation, there's like this just millions and millions of these biophotons of light that are these little receivers of the DNA. And it's like I don't know about you, Pam, but I didn't know the stars were communicating with us. I didn't know the gap. Well, maybe you did.
Just maybe.
So it's like there's this constant contact, right? This constant movement from the galaxies of information coming into the biophotons of our DNA, communicating. Our DNA is this constant movement. It's not frozen, it's not static. It is interpreting the information and it's sending it back out again. And if I could, kind of enclose it in, italics, this is intuition. This is our intuitive sense that we've been taught to be afraid of. So we're not able to listen up. We're not able to listen up. And right now, it's our intuition is being activated because we need our internal sense to guide us right now. Because I was talking to someone and they said the powers that be right now, they're just smarter than I am. And I have to trust that they're really leading me in the right direction. And so it's like, okay, that's the kind of stuff that needs to stop. And we have the knowledge, we have this mighty force that's rising inside of us where it's like we don't even question. It's like there's a clarity coming in. It's like you can see truth it's like unstoppable. You can't unsee what you saw. And that's this awakening that's happening inside of us to include spiritual teachers. I'm very clear to say I can say a lot of things and it is a truth for me. And the one thing I know is super true is our intuitive psychic abilities. Everybody's going to awaken to we have to navigate, but uh, that you must tune into your internal navigation system, which is being turned on. And so the genes are being switched on or off depending on your environment. So this is why it's super important. If I can just give a little advice here, please surround yourself with others that radiate that same light because the biophotons, the light within us is communicating with the light in me is communicating with the light in you, Pam, and the light in you is communicating with the light in me. And then even people who are kind of grumpy, we're all communicating. And so what type of communication do you want to be surrounded by? So that was the other thing that I wanted to ask your insight about because whew, communication is just
Yeah.
flying and telepathic and that pure consciousness. Like I can hear the galaxies, I can hear this background noise. And so I'm curious about what you're picking up about communication.
Yeah, there's going to be an absolute explosion because Pluto not only intensifies the sign it's moving through, which is all about, and Aquarius is also higher mind, so it has a very mental function. But in July, Uranus is going to move into Gemini, which is the sign of communication. It's the sign of,
Oh, wow.
and Uranus is to do with the galactic, so we're going to have a lot more galactic communication. But it's also about our neural networks. It's about TikTok, Twitter, X,
Yes.
all of that
Yes.
communication, the overload, and it will be very, very easy to get too jazzed up with the
Yes.
overload of that lower level communication. So it's really crucial, as you say, Nancy, that we keep our vision high, we keep our frequency high, we surround ourselves with people who are on the same page as us, because when we go into fear, as you've referred to, really, everything contracts. We can't
Yes.
flow. Whereas if we're open, particularly keeping our hearts open, we're on a very different timeline moving forwards. We're receiving all this amazing stuff that you're talking about. It's interesting, when I was talking to Lee Harris yesterday, he also used exactly the same words of cosmic consciousness. He used exactly the same words as you've just used, cosmic consciousness. And that is not only Pluto in Aquarius, it's also Uranus in Gemini. That's what we're moving into. Nancy, you've gone mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. So the other thing that's really been coming through, so not only are we opening intuitively to the four clairs that people hear about, what, clear feeling, clear hearing, clear seeing, clear knowing. We're going beyond that. And there's a new level that's coming up that is the earth intuitive, where there are those in the world who are very, very sensitive to the earth frequencies, which right now we're having a lot of frequencies. We're having a lot of earthquakes. The earth is communicating to us through the deep rumbling in the earth. And so there are those who are earth intuitives can really pick up on that. And that's going to accelerate. We also have the cosmic intuitives, those who can communicate with the stars. And I can feel right now, people are like, oh my gosh, I've talked to the stars forever. And it's like, that's coming to that consciousness, the level of consciousness. Here's the point that I wanted to make about the Schumann resonance and about the solar flares. And so the blue light beings, they don't put their hands on their hips, but that's what I imagine. They're putting their hands on their hips and like, come on, people. Come on. The Schumann resonance is communicating a high frequency of consciousness. The solar flares are communicating a high level of consciousness. So when they're talking about this blue plasma, I'm calling this tsunami wave of light that's coming in, that's pure light codes. And these light codes, like we have no concept. They're filled with like trillions of bits of data in one little light code, and we're being activated by this. But the light codes pass through, this is what they were telling me, it passes through the sun. They pass all the way through the sun. They don't go around, they don't circle around, they don't avoid, they go right through the knowledge of the sun. And they're picking up the knowledge through solar flares, and they're bringing the higher states of consciousness from even the sun's ancient wisdom and knowledge. So it's like, rather than saying, oh, I'm sick because the solar flares are too much and it's going to knock down our communication system, right? Because we're supposed to learn how to communicate in other higher level ways. But we need to learn how to, I wouldn't say protect maybe, but like filter. So when I was asking them, well, how do we do that? And they said, meditate with the blue light. The blue light will help kind of filter out some of that radiation frequency and still allow us to get the knowledge from the sun or from the Schumann resonance.
Wow. And we're all receiving this. Even if we're hiding in a basement, we're all receiving this, Nancy, are we?
Yes, yes. And they actually have scientific research centers that are even buried under the earth. And so it's like these I'm going to call them light codes. I don't know what they call them, but it's like they come down through and they're even penetrating in the earth and they're able to pick up on these frequencies. So there are scientists that are studying this, as well.
It's phenomenal. And if I can just, and I don't know if this is the same light that you are talking about, but I want to credit and thank my good friend Heather Ensworth, astrologer Heather Ensworth in the States, because just yesterday she sent me a link about galactic flares. And apparently they're of an extremely unusual and very high level of blinding surges of light coming from our galactic center, which is 27 degrees of Sagittarius, which we referred to in astrology the whole time. So this is the center of our galaxy. It's a massive black hole. And normally it only emits X-rays, but recently the James Webb Telescope has picked up these blinding surges of very high frequency light. So I don't know if they are the same.
Oh, I'm certain it is. I'm certain it is. Because the image that I'm getting as a clairvoyant while you're talking is like a rocket ship in outer space. And once in a while, to autocorrect or correct the direction they're going, they've got to do those little blasts of light to help, or the flames, whatever it's called, that helps propel it because they've got to keep a certain speed to catch the orbit around the moon, right? And so they've got to do those blasts. But here's the other thing, because people were asking me, where are you getting your information? And so I was like, okay, this cosmic consciousness, this cosmic rays of light. So I just typed it into the search engine, and NASA has a whole article about cosmic rays of light. And how they describe it is that there's a star that completely explodes into this mist, this burst. It totally dissolves with this catastrophic explosion. And then what they say is that it starts heading to the earth, and then it might take 1,000 years to get here.
Yeah.
But they're calling these cosmic rays of light. So this is what kind of flipped my mind a little bit, where it was like, well, how did it know to coordinate that burst of light right now during this time when the humanity and the earth and the galaxies are rising in consciousness?
Yeah. Yeah, everything is converging. It's remarkable. And Nancy, do you feel that this particular surge that we're going through right now, it's going to peak March 29th to the 7th of April? Do you feel this is offering us the biggest jump in consciousness for humanity to date?
It's yes is the short answer. Yes is the short answer. And and I know for a lot of people, it's like they want to know, how am I going to feel? Am I going to be okay? It's kind of like, how am I going to feel? Is it going to be scary? Is it going to hurt me? Am I going to get sick? And for the most part, a lot of people probably won't even notice. They're not going to notice the activation of the DNA. It's going to be quite natural because whether you are conscious of what is happening or not, whether you're conscious of the astrology, whether you're even conscious that you're a spirit having a human experience, your energy field has been being prepared for this time. And so, but for those who are conscious, it's going to be a heck of a lot of fun, to notice to notice what's happening. And for those who don't even notice, it's just pretty benign that today's another work day, that what they're saying is because their life will change, and their life will change in uplifting ways. Like they're like, wow, I'm happier. Why am I happy? It's like this is the information I'm getting. It's like we will have to literally go back and think, how were we doing in January? How were we doing in December? And we will barely be able to touch how miserable we were. It's like we'll have to read our journals to say, holy smokes, now I know that I went through a shift. And then the other thing is these incredible ideas that will come to the surface for people. There's a sense of curiosity is going to drive us. So it is big. Yeah, I'm giddy. I'm excited about it.
So Nancy, what's the best advice you can give us in order to optimize this incredibly rare and positive and powerful surge of amazing light that is going to raise our consciousness, help to heal us backwards, forwards in time? What's the best way for all of us to optimize this?
So the number one thing that I'm going to say is nature. So nature is sentient. So nature is they are spiritual beings, sentient beings, trees and stones. I know people will find that hard to believe, and of course, and animals, and so when we get out in nature, it's like nature knows that we're kind of hard our wiring is probably a little unnerving. And so it sends us nature sends us this kind of elixir to help us integrate and to help us calm. And in exchange, when we go out into nature, we help share light. We share DNA with the tree's DNA. There's a communication that's happening. So that's number one. But I'm also aware there are people who are housebound that can't get out. They're in wheelchairs, or they're the elderly, and but you can still get a house plant. And what they tell me is you can even watch a nature show, and that the light will come through the television, the nature frequency. So that's number one. And drinking water, of course, as a nurse, I will always put that plug in. And then meditation. So for a lot of people, I'm just gonna, even though I'm a intuitive meditation teacher, and I wish everyone in the world, and I know you're gathering so many people to meditate, um, but just creating some quiet time to listen.
Stillness, I think, is super important. The stillness in the heart.
Yes.
That's coming up a lot. Almost that what I'm hearing and understanding is the way to our multidimensionality is almost we go through a gateway in the heart. We have to go via the heart to go out. Is that your
Yes.
sense, Nancy?
Well, my sense is a little absolutely. And our heart is definitely getting activated, but there's a sense about it, that what's coming in, and it's also going up. It's connecting our heart with our spirit, our soul as well. The other day, I was there was something that came up on the news that really I found disturbing. It just hit me, just hit me with this force, and I was like, "Whoa! I didn't know I felt this way about this," and I just had to go get quiet for a little bit. And, I even felt a little emotional, which, as an Aquarian, Capricorn, Virgo, that emotion is not my go-to default program. But I felt this kind of wave of emotion, of grief or sadness. Alright. And so I'm just sitting there and I'm just pondering this event. And then I felt this wave come into the room. It infused, I know it was my heart, and my heart was activated. It didn't feel like love, it felt like pure beauty. Now, I want to describe this pure beauty because it was like even the worst things, the most awful things were beautiful. It was like, okay, this is beautiful. Like I couldn't even have the thought, just I was just this walking ball of beautiful light. And then I heard the words, this is what the tsunami blue galactic superwave is coming in. And people will begin to see the beauty in everything. It's going to activate the DNA so that we can see the beauty in everything, even if it's not so easy to digest. That we'll be able to see some aspects of truth of it that will help us stay in that state of beauty. And so I don't know if you've ever felt things like, I'm sure that you have, but I was just like, you know, I want to hang on to it. It's like, okay, how can let me just breathe. Let me get quiet. Let me stay safe with it. Just like a big light comes on and then it slowly fades again. It was beautiful.
I do feel that, Nancy. I feel it particularly in nature, where I'm like a kid at the moment because the lime green leaves of spring are just barely coming out, and there's a huge. It's my favourite tree in the ancient woodland. It's a huge kind of granddaddy beech tree, and if I sit on the sort of massive roots, I can just drop into bliss so rapidly. I just drop into bliss, and I never want that bliss to end. It just
Yeah.
seems infinite. It's in the present moment. It's beautiful. It's profound, and I never want it to end. And it's just like a surrender to the divine flow of the
Yes.
force of nature. as it were.
Yes.
It's very easy for me to get to that place in nature.
Yes.
Yeah.
And do you find that when you kind of start your day that way,
Yeah.
that it holds, it sustains you throughout the day, and then if you don't do that,
Yeah.
it's a little rocky?
One of the first things I say before I even open my eyes is I live in love, peace, and bliss. I live in love, peace, and bliss. And I use that as a rolling mantra for a few minutes before I even think about opening my eyes. And that kind of sets my tone for the day. Yeah, for sure.
Beautiful. Yeah, and for me, especially since then, I walk the beauty way. So that's been my mantra. I am walking the beauty way. I am walking the beauty path. Um, and I had never experienced anything like that before. And so if that's what we have to look forward to, that's pretty exciting. So what so oh, and in science, it is in my blog, but science has been studying, it's called Life Science or Natural Science, the website, these blue droplets. So they're using these blue droplets of energy of light that activate DNA. And so as they're finding these blue droplets come in and they can activate particular DNA, it's like they're getting excited because they may be able to say, okay, those who activate cancer, you stay quiet. Those who activate health, you stay active. And so we are this far already in our science. And so if we're going to go even further, I can't even imagine,
There will
you
be
know.
many healing solutions. I mean, many are developed now, but they just haven't been public. But there are many others
Yes.
to come, and
Yes.
maybe I don't know how you feel about this, Nancy, because we never rehearse these conversations. We just
No.
off we go, and they're completely spontaneous. But I feel it's kind of undeniable that there's a split in the timeline. And we can either be in fear or we can be in love, but you can't look both ways at once. You have to choose what you're going to focus on. And the fearful timeline is going to get louder, is going to be
Yes.
more difficult, and it's going to get louder. So if you focus on that, life will become more turbulent, more chaotic, more just all over the place, and a bit scary. But nobody forces you onto either timeline. It's our choice. So if we focus on love, this is a completely different ballgame, a completely different reality experience. And we can feel, I hope you can, all the listeners, all the viewers can feel how excited Nancy and I are for what is imminent, that we are in the process of this right now. And it's super exciting. And in fact, again, I want to credit Heather Ensworth, my good friend, because she mentioned that Bibu Dev Misra, who is this very scholarly Indian author who wrote Yuga Shift, was talking about this kind of
Um,
activation of the galactic center as marking the beginning of not only genetic changes, but the beginning of the new ascension cycle. So I just want to credit Heather with that. And so I mean, how lucky are we to be here at this time when
yes.
we're in this process of becoming the dragonflies?
Yes. And in the beginning, if I can be honest, I just thought because I couldn't imagine what two distinct timelines could look like. And I thought, oh no, because the information I kept getting, if you're standing out in the road and it starts raining, everybody's going to get wet. And so that has not changed. And just like these light codes coming in, no one is immune from having their DNA activated. Now, some will be activated more just because their energetic system, their human energy field is ready for it, whether you've been preparing for it through, good sleep and good diet and meditation and, keeping your mind in the right place. Or even if you haven't, you'll get activated a little bit and rise and a little bit and rise. But but now I'm I'm feeling I can see those two distinct. I can feel it. And I'm not immune either to having family members that are in crisis that maybe don't believe in what I do or how I see the world. And But what I've noticed, Pam, is we're before where it's like my heart just breaks at the if they're struggling, and it pulls me out of, my own joy, my own happiness. But now what I'm noticing is I'm more able to stay more neutral, and I'm more able to just be in that state of love, and know that they are the path that they're on is it's the same path, they're just working it a little differently. And that's they've came to earth to they're not failing. They're not, it's just that they're working that path differently. And I remember once this vision, and it was you had some very high frequency individuals. I think it was in a dream, and they were at the bottom rung of this staircase, or the bottom step, and there were others that are rising and rising and rising. And it was that sense of like, oh, so you're staying there on purpose. Oh yes, I'm helping people up on that first step. And then there's someone else to help them up on the next step. But I do totally agree with what you said, that any moment it's like, oh, there's a road over there. I'm just going to cut through these bushes. That it can happen that fast. It's not like you're just stuck in one place. And I do believe we can have moments where we're feeling light and bright, and then it's like, oh, we fell through the bushes and now we're on that other path that's harder again. And so we do, it's going to be helpful. Keep
And I
our
think
mind in check.
we're aware, if we can be conscious
Yes.
and aware that there are two broad collective timelines, when all of us, through all the turbulence of our days, slip a bit onto the other timeline, we can be
Yes.
aware of it. Okay, I've slipped.
Exactly.
Now I've got a toolkit. What is my toolkit? What can I use to get back on the high road, as it were? So I
Yes.
think we've got to a state of consciousness where we find no easy ways to do that. Laugh with a friend, hug your child, hug your dog, hug a tree, meditate.
Whatever you need to do to like for me, when I was up, I felt a deep sadness about an event, and I just went into a quiet room, and I just let myself just sit there, even in the sadness. I let myself just have the sadness, and then that beauty came through. There was something else. Oh, it just phew, went right out of my mind. Um, oh, I don't know. I'll keep going. So I wanted to come back to the antenna piece. So these biophotons of light, they're throughout our entire body. And so a light body is being created, it's being manifested. We are all manifesting our light body. And what's happening is this communication is coming in. As I said, it's received. We're an antenna. We are the receivers. And then we take in the data, we interpret the data, and we decide what's going to go back out again. And all this is done at an unconscious level for most people. But that we are going to become we are going to be living a more purpose-filled life. We're going to be able to do things on purpose. We're going to be able to manifest on purpose. We're going to be able to communicate telepathically on purpose, and someone's going to be able to receive that information. And so those are the other things that are happening and I said, we're going to be transmitting. So a DNA is like a crystalline structure that can hold trillions of bits of data, and it's transmitting data far beyond our capability to understand. So we've always been communicating like this, but we didn't know we were communicating like this. And this is what this time frame is. We're going to start knowing what communication is happening, that our DNA is opening those doors. So when the knowledge comes in, it's like, oh, I totally understand that. I totally get that. And then we can participate actively in that consciousness.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I really see, just to sort of reinforce what you're saying, Nancy, I really see that it's interesting. Lee Harris yesterday in his channeling was talking about 2025 as a year of mastery for us, a year of mastery. And my research, investigations really have brought me to a place that if we can be in coherence, and that's kind of breath, brain, heart coherence, and drop into stillness regularly and live from a state of love, we are going to be living in synchronicities all over the place. We're going to be living in the magic zone because we are just going to be
Exactly.
able to naturally attract whatever we want because everything is going to be a frequency match to that state of coherence and
Yes.
state of being. Whereas if
Yeah.
you're chaotic, you're in fear, you're scattered, you're all over the place, your reality is going to be filled with that. So the trick is to get
Exactly.
mastery. The trick is to get this mastery, and it's not hard. I mean, a bit of breath work, sitting in nature, the
Yeah.
things we're talking about, they're simple, simple things. They're not complicated.
Yes, yes. And in some ways, even if we don't do it, we can still kind of awaken to that. That's the beauty of recognizing our own divinity. Like we may not have recognized that before. But I don't know if I shared this story with you, but recently, one of my students, it was her fiance, uh, had an experience, and I actually got on the phone and talked to him about this. I wanted to hear what happened. And he said that he was driving his car and someone else was driving their car. And of course, they're heading straight through. I don't even know exactly what happened, but he said he could see the driver of the other car. The other driver could see him. They were heading head on collision at a pretty high, like 50 miles an hour or something. Like they were really heading towards each other. And one car passed through the other car. And then they stopped. And he said they both got out and they both were standing in the middle of the street, looking at each other like, what just happened? He felt the steel, the car, all the car parts, the engine, he felt it going through his body and out the other side. This is where we're headed. And there was some level where he was awakened because it's not that he didn't follow it, but he didn't follow this belief, right? I don't know that he was open minded to it. He wasn't closed, but now he's having many intuitive type events that are happening. And he didn't know the other person. And they were just looking at each other like, I mean, how do you even conceptualize that? So these are ways that we can expect things to happen. All right, so I want to talk about the first week of April because I want your input on this. So I'm calling it a crystalline, I don't even know if I wrote it down. There's this slowing down, this information I got the first week of April. It's like everything's going to really slow down. It's going to crystallize. So it's like we're getting the bursts of light. The light codes are coming in, and then everything's going to crystallize and really slow down so it can be anchored. This high frequency light can be anchored into the 3D realm. And it's almost like we could almost stop to that still point you talk about. We may even hit that still point where time and space stop, where and we may notice things slowing down. We may notice missing gaps of time. But what they're saying after this March 29th event, the following week of April is where then it gets crystallized and anchored in so that we can ground it and start working with it. So I never got a chance to ask you about April, so I hope that you're prepared.
Well, it's interesting because as well as the solar eclipse in Aries, we've got Neptune moving into Aries for the first time since 1861. It last entered Aries in April 1861. And this is because it's at zero of Aries, it's like a whole new episode for humanity. It's like making real the dream, especially when Saturn hits
Okay.
it.
Making real the dream.
Yeah.
So crystallizing is taking the dream, crystallizing it, slowing it down, and making it real.
And actually, thank you, because Saturn is already operationally conjunct Neptune. They come conjunct to the degree in July, exactly to the minute on 20th of February 2026, but it's already conjunct. Now, Saturn slows down and Saturn
Oh,
solidifies. it solidifies, it makes real, it makes tangible, it makes matter. Whereas Neptune is the inspiration, it's divinity, it's connection to source. It's all of this beauty and inspiration. So when they come together, my phrase for that is making real the dream for a whole new episode for humanity.
Yeah, so this is, this is that kind of there's a 3 to 5 day period of time where they'll just say, "What just happened?" Like the cars passing through each other. What just happened here? And this kind of slowing down of time, and they just the blue beings of light just want us to know that this is happening. It's real. It's just the new way we're going to be functioning in the world. Don't be frightened. You're ready for this.
And I think there are going to be lots of kind of glitches, time slippage.
Yes.
um, as we enter our multi-dimensionality more fully, we're going to be able to see other periods in history, maybe, or other
Yes.
experiences in past life. There's going to be slippage, and that may seem kind of very scary to some people, but we have to welcome it and say, we've lived such a tight, contracted, linear
Yeah.
3D life, and we're now stepping back into what the original power that we were meant to be. And so
Yes.
welcome it.
Yes, yes. Well, and levitation, is there, I experienced this last year when I was on a piece of property that was a very high frequency and I was standing near a stone circle. And every time I took a step, I was stumbling and stumbling and stumbling. And I'm like, what is happening? Because, the more you stumble, the more you focus and be aware that you've got some strong footing. Well, it wasn't until I got back to the room that I was renting, I was like, oh, I was floating even just a little half inch above the ground. And so I couldn't measure where my foot was going. So we're going to be experiencing so many fun things, a lot of fun things, but it can be very disorienting to the mind. But I find if we just toy with the idea of pretending, you know, just pretend that it might be real. Then it's just like athletes who do the visualization for the Olympics before they go, do the javelin or they're running, running the track. They will visualize it beforehand, and that will be really helpful to kind of visualize the different abilities that each person will have.
Yeah, that's really a great idea because you're calling them in, you're welcoming them in as well.
Yes. And
And
you're helping your body uh, conceptualize,
yeah,
crystallize. Yeah.
yeah, it's like an imaginary rehearsal. And I think
Yes.
the mantra I often suggest for the meditations we do every night, where welcoming in an expanded consciousness of love is quite helpful because there will be this sense of spaciousness and expansion, won't there, in our
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So there are I know that we're kind of going to be wrapping up our time shortly, but I get these little taps on the shoulder. So one of the other taps on the shoulder has to do with as the frequency is going to really rise. So we are going to experience galactic presence on the earth, other cultures coming in. So whether you want to call it UFOs, UAPs, non-human intelligence, um, that it wasn't always so easy for them to come through. I mean, the blue light beings come through, but they're still on a very high dimension. So some people can see them, some people can talk to them. And it's taken me about 7 years to bridge that gap in communication because in the beginning, they sounded like whales and dolphins and mermaids, but now they speak in English. Thank you very much. But we are going to have more experiences in the next 10 to 15 years. So that because the frequency will be high enough that other cultures can come in. How do you feel about that when you hear me?
Really excited. I mean, we're galactic beings ourselves, aren't we? That's where we
Yes.
came from. And so I'm super excited because it's like a family reunion, isn't it? We're going to be reconnecting to some of our
Yes.
original
Our
lineage.
ancestors.
Yeah, yeah, and boy, will that help to jump our frequency.
Yes.
What? Because obviously they are an advanced intelligence, otherwise they wouldn't
Yeah.
be traveling around space at such speed. So they're going to be teaching us so much.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
where we're going to make some real quantum leaps as well.
Yes,
I
yes.
I think it'll be immensely exciting.
It is immensely exciting. And I will, when I have pretended, because I do the pretend game to help my mind. And so I was going through this. If I saw a spaceship, would I be frightened or would I be curious and excited? And so I'll go through this scenario where I'm walking out my front door and all the neighborhood's out and we're all looking up and there's a spaceship. And I try to get a feel if I feel frightened or if I feel curious. And so people laugh all the time about, but I do pretend that because I want to help prepare my mind because that it would really flip a switch, with our reality. And so I do play with that quite a bit.
That's really interesting. Sometimes people say, "Well, how do you know that they are benevolent?" And I think the vast majority of them are, because if they'd wanted to polish off humanity, they've had the last 200,000 years to do it, and they haven't done it yet. In fact,
Right.
it's quite funny. A friend was visiting me recently, and I'm quite hard to find where I live. And I said, "Did you have any trouble finding me?" And she said, "No, no, I just followed the spaceship over your house."
Oh, my.
Quite funny. I didn't realize I had a spaceship above the house. But anyway, that was what she said. So,
Well, and that's the thing too, people say that they're there. We just they're cloaked or we can't see them. So maybe, with this awakening of consciousness, what has been hidden will be revealed. Maybe some will be able to see it. And the other thing is what I'm beginning to notice is people are turning blue. And so I could just look out the window right now and I'll see people walking and they're just blue. They're radiating blue. And I know I talked to you a couple weeks ago and I was blinded by the blue radiance that you had. You've got more pinkish quartz pink today,
oh,
but I see quartz pink go a lot with the blue. It's like the blue's intense and then it's like this gentle integration and then blue, but I'm seeing a lot of blue. So I thought, well, is it just because I bring a lot of blue light into my neighborhood that I'm seeing it? But I just used my remote viewing to look in India and to look in Africa and to look in, England. And it's like, nope, I'm seeing, you know, let's say if there's 100 people walking down the street, I'd say a good 40% right now are radiating the blue light. And so I suspect that will increase with each day as we head towards this big shift.
wow, wow. So you are seeing from your understanding, Nancy, that by the time we get into, let's say, May,
Yeah.
we will be in a very different place to where we are right now.
I would be shocked if we were in the same place that we are now. I find myself telling myself, don't hang your hat on a lot of stuff that's happening right now because it's going to be so different in a few months that there's no sense in wasting breath on it. And so I just keep coming back to center and just keep moving forward. And for me, writing is helpful, baking is helpful, going for walks with my dog is helpful, especially, grab hold of those little events that you've already said it today that will help flip you back to center again. And so it is like a kid waiting for Christmas. Y- I so want to know what it's going to be like, but I don't know that anybody can really tell us what it's going to be like.
And we're co-creating it, aren't we? We as
Yes,
humanity are co-creating it.
we
Uh,
asked, yes,
yeah.
yes, we wanted change. We all wanted change. We just didn't know that the road might be a bit rough.
And I think anything not built on love and compassion and peace will ultimately crumble, because there just isn't the energy to support
No.
those old ways and old
Yeah,
structures.
and it's already crumbling. We just don't see it yet, but, I mean, it's the energetic level, to me, I'm watching things that looks like coal, like somebody's just opened the coal door and all the coals just draining down. I'm seeing a lot of collapsing of old energy, and we needed this shakeup. We needed this big bang, like hit that door. Okay, the door dropped. Okay, all this black coals coming out. We need this as much as we don't like it.
Because if life was comfortable, we'd just be humming along, same old, wouldn't we? Same old routine, same old
Yeah,
job. We wouldn't have been shaken out of that kind of, I don't know, it was almost semi-conscious, wasn't it? We were just
yeah,
in a flow of this is the way it's always been. But I think we've had quite a few shocks over the last 4 to 5 years that have made us step back, look at our lives, look at our reality, and say, do you know what? I'm just not living this way anymore. I want to create a
exactly.
much more loving reality that is currently being offered to me. There's nobody coming in to save us. We are the army of love that save
Yes,
ourselves.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for saying that because they're not coming to save us. They're coming to give us the tools and not they, like the blue beings of light aren't giving us the tools for us to save ourselves. Our own consciousness is being awakened that will provide a whole other level of tools to be able to cope and to be able to come up with great ideas and how to move energy. Oh my gosh, I wish I could talk to you forever because this is the other thing. I keep being told in the past we may have gone out into the streets and we may have held up the signs and things like that, but they were like, what's happening now, we must move the energy with our mind,
Yeah.
move the energy with our consciousness, that through prayer, through meditation, through groups gathering together. That's the only way we're going to shift this now. You can go to the streets, you can hold up the signs, but do it with energy as well, with intention and with purpose.
Because everything begins with energy, everything begins with the invisible. And if you try and fight on the streets, and for some people that's the role they're going to play, you're a long way into the kind of manifestation process. It starts
Yes.
with energy, so therefore you can be much more powerful and effective and rapid in changing things if you work with the energy. And that is
Yes.
absolutely, Pluto and Aquarius, those two jaggedy lines of the glyph, are all about energy and frequency, and they always have been about energy and frequency, but we haven't kind of been conscious of it up to
Yes.
now. And the reason you can communicate with the blue light beings, Nancy, is because we have raised our consciousness, you in particular raised
Exactly.
your consciousness, in order
Yes.
to meet them. Because
Yeah.
before, all these connections we're having with these amazing angels and galactic beings wouldn't have been possible because there was too big a gap. So
Exactly.
we as
Yes.
humanity have raised our own consciousness to enable this shift to happen.
Yes. Yes. And we are being assisted with that, with these waves of consciousness that are coming through. And and like I said, with the blue beings of light, I don't even know when I started hearing them in English. I can't even tell you when that happened. And that's the thing about consciousness is that once you awaken to a certain level of understanding, knowledge, and wisdom at another level, it's like that door closes and you can't even remember that you used to do it in a different way.
Yeah, because we're living in the present moment. That's where the
Yeah.
power is, in the present moment. So we'll more and more do that because this is absolutely the point of power. That
Yeah.
stillness, that present moment, and that's where we will operate from, I think, going forwards.
Yeah. Yeah. And the equinox, the spring equinox is a big kickoff point. It's even though the waves are coming in now, there's going to be like some preparation energy. It feels like it's shifting on the spring equinox,
Mhm.
and then that will help us to kind of quickly rise with that what I call the galactic superwave of light.
Wow. And so we are absolutely in this process, and this is a one-way process. You can't stuff the butterfly back into the caterpillar. This is a one-way process, and we are in it.
It's like being birthed, right, into a new world, and you start, the mother starts pushing, and yep, I remember when, when I was going to have my son, and I was like, I was so serious, Pam. I said, I've changed my mind. I don't want to do this. The head nurse, I was at the elevator, hit the down button. I'm going home, and the head nurse had to come and say, yeah, it doesn't work like that.
It's a one-way process. So, Nancy, this has been so wonderful, so exciting, so uplifting. Anything else you want to say before we close?
Then I know for a lot of people who are hearing this and who will share this, with others who may find it interesting or may not, I know it can feel intense. Um, it's like, y- I just want to assure everyone is a mighty force for change right now. There's this power rising within us. And I wouldn't even call it a warrior type place. It's like we had that, but it's rising upward, a mighty force within us that knows that we're unstoppable, that knows we've got this, and knows that we're stronger than we ever thought we were. And you can't fake that. And it is going to rise. People are going to feel so like, whoa, cut my shoulders back and I'm standing up and I've got this. It's like, where does that come from? I have felt so insignificant my whole life. And so just know that everyone's being taken care of, the spirit world. Oh my gosh, the angels. There's just so many angels on the earth. And it's just like cheering on the sidelines.
Beautiful.
Got this, got this. So, it's exciting, it's intense. Keep getting out in nature, keep connecting with each other.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
You've given us an absolute wealth there of fabulous, really wonderful, kind of once in a lifetime data, once in many lifetimes, I think, Nancy. And that's why it's so incredibly exciting. So, we're really grateful to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love chatting with you. I love it.
Your connection with the blue light beings, it's absolutely precious. So a huge thank you. I'm going to put all of your information underneath the video as usual. So do follow Nancy. She's mega busy. I don't know how she produces so much information, videos, newsletters, etc. So yeah,
I have a lot of help.
yeah, but it's impressive. So just welcome it in.
Yes,
Turn off the
absolutely.
news, turn off we have to be aware of what's happening in the world, but not negatively engaging with it to the point it drags down our
Exactly.
frequency.
Exactly.
Focus on what you want to create, because whatever state of being you are in, that is the reality you are going to be experiencing. It's a frequency
Yes,
match. That's a kind of law of the universe. Bless you,
absolutely.
Nancy, a
Thank you
thousandfold.
so much. Thank you so much.
And I
And
hope
thanks
everybody
everybody
else,
for listening in. Yeah.
yeah, I hope everyone's enjoyed it as much as Nancy and I have. We've rocked it here. So
Yes, we
loads
have.
of love to everybody. Lots of love. Bye for now, everybody.